preparing for how to say this. And Lewis Hamilton wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this race breakdown, or whatever video we're going to call this. Basically, we just break down the race weekend that just happened. And firstly, I want to say what a bloody great first weekend of racing we had with F2 and F1. With all four races, it was every race had something interesting in it. There wasn't a boring race, so I was really, really happy with how it started. So, but what we'll do, we'll start with F2. Because, F1's what everyone wants, and we've got to keep people watching until the end. So,
got to give you something someone else might not.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, before I do that, actually, follow our Twitter, which is Final Sector YT. I did my best to, I think outside of a couple of the races, just because I was like ultra tired, but the time zones were really bad. But yeah, I like to live tweet pretty much the entire, all the races, so... you can have my dumb thoughts if you like, just follow the Twitter. But yeah, we'll start with F2. F2 has 3 races this year. I'm not sure if we've talked about that before, but they've changed the format for this year, where they have 2 sprint races and a feature race. I had to look up again how the qualifying worked, because they do the qualifying on the Friday, and the qualifying sets the grid for the feature race, exactly the same as how they would be in Formula 1. But the 2 sprint races, the qualifying, they do a reverse grid for the top 10 for the first sprint race, and then they take wherever they finish in the first sprint race, and they do another reverse grid for the second sprint race.
For the top 10, yeah.
From the top 10 again, yeah. It was an interesting one. There was a lot of stuff happening sort of from the get-go. I think by the time lap 4 happened, there was... Ticktum took out Vashore in the first corner, Drogovic got damage, and Marcus Armstrong and Ralph Boschung all stopped on track, and there was a VSC, and that happened by lap 4. So, yeah. In classic F2 style, it was kind of chaos. So, Yuri Vips, he had a rough weekend, but it all started even from qualifying, where he actually got disqualified from qualifying for a technical infringement. I think something to do with his floor. It was something not on regulation. The floor, some sort of underbarge, and it was slightly too long, I believe. Something the like measurement that, was basically way much longer than it should have been. Yeah. So he was. I think he was supposed to start P6 from memory, and then he started from the back of the grid. And then it was weird, because I think High Tech appealed it. The next day I was like, oh, they've appealed it. So he's got back to his P6. And then literally before the race started, it's like, oh, no, they've removed the appeal. I'm just like, can you make up your goddamn mind? Because, it was weird, because obviously it was reverse grid. So whoever, him dropping down and moving back up changed the reverse grid pole. But yeah, that was the first thing for Vips in a very, very tough weekend for him. But yeah, the first race was... It's sort of, after the chaos of the start, it sort of settled down for a little bit.
It's not even like there was that much chaos. I think it's because everyone was overcautious. There was kind of a bit of, I think as well that some of the bumps that were only minor bumps resulted in people just retiring. You go, what? He flicked him and he retired. So it was a bit odd in that regard as well. It seemed like the reliability was out the window for some guys. So there was a lot of chaos, but not necessarily because of people going crazy on the track. It was just,
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I think Vips got a black and white flag for unsportsmanlike conduct during that race as well. I'm just going to point out everything that happened to Vips, because he's he just seems like the unluckiest man in the world this weekend.
Yeah, today.
But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, it sort of settled down during that middle period, but particularly right at the end, I think it was Lawson in the lead. He got into the lead very, very quickly from the start. He had a really good race. But he had Johan Deruvala, who was really, really catching him towards the end. And I thought for sure he was going to get him. And Lawson was on the radio saying, I'm giving it everything. I'm giving it everything. And Deruvala was catching him a second a lap or something. They were way out ahead of the pack. But, credit to Lawson. He managed to hold him off for the win, which is, rookie season. And
I was about to say, one of the ones I think when we've discussed privately and about some of the rookies and starting off in that regard is good on him, you know what I mean?
He's done very, very well. He had a really good weekend, Liam Lawson.
I was about to say for the rest of the weekend, the other 2 races, which I'm sure we'll touch on, he was always up there and making good moves and, trying things and but still keeping it clean.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But yeah, the sprint race 2 happened. And funnily enough, Ticktum got hit by Schwartzman in almost the exact same way. He took out Vachor in the first race, I think it was. And he was upset about it, but I feel like it's kind of a bit of karma in a sense.
It was a bit of karma, and I think we discussed it at the time when I was watching it. They basically, it was just in turn 1, they were coming out of it, and he was trying to get a run on the 2 guys who were in front of him, so he kind of darted to the right to get a good run, but that was basically Schwartzman just funneling down the inside, expecting everyone to go wide, not expecting Ticktum to just cut back on him, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, like, he did
it's
get
definitely
taken
racing
out,
incident.
but then, I'd almost say, like, at this level, I don't know, like, you could tell, you wouldn't see that in the first race, but I think because people were a bit more racy in the second race, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
So it was going to happen to someone, and I'm surprised there kind of wasn't more. Sometimes you see in these, second race of the weekend, you sometimes have 3-4 guys taking each other out. 4 separate incidents going on the first lap, but there really wasn't. It was kind of just one at a time here and there. So it was unlucky that it was Ticktum involved in something again. But as you say, probably was going to happen to anyone.
Yeah,
It's karma serves back to him that it happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there was a really, really good battle between Lundgaard, Lawson, and Drugovich for 3rd place. I think I don't know if there were 3 wide, but they were all like sort of darting in and out each other in this race, taking that 3rd, and then Drugovich decided he wanted to take out Lawson, which proceeded in another safety car. But the battle was good while it lasted.
Went down the inside, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because Lawson lost the place, and you could see it was coming because you have 2 cars side by side. You have one in the middle, and he's gonna want to try and move in because otherwise the train just goes through. You see it, in every series. But as soon as he saw him coming, he was turning. I'm like, no, that's not no. 2 into 1, and he even it was unlucky, but like it's this early on, and I think. Especially after Lawson had such a good race start as well, just take the L. This is about the whole season. When
survival,
you look at in the past who's won, it's the guys who just keep out of the way, not necessarily the guys that are the fastest. So I think again, in the moment, sure, he's trying to get back in there. Maybe he didn't look in his mirror because he was still just focusing on the car ahead, but it'll come with experience, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again rookie year. You learn pretty quickly though.
Yeah, he's got all that adrenaline from running right at the front again as well, So.
Yeah, absolutely. But that brought out the safety car, and obviously at this point there were 2 very different strategies in terms of tires. So F2 only have like hard and soft tires, but they were like the hard runners and then the soft runners. And I think Zhou was out in the lead, and he was running the hard tire, and then there was like Vips and Piastri and. I think maybe Lundgaard, behind as well, and all of them were on the soft tire, and they were catching him very, very quickly. And then Vips gets some sort of weird problem and drops down to 7th. I don't really know what happened.
Just his drive out of the corner just started going alright, which was
it was really, really weird. And then he gets a 5-second penalty for a safety car infringement. So
we saw a lot of those.
There was a lot. Yeah, but that was just to add to his weekend. He probably would have taken the lead, I think, considering I think he was ahead of Piastri when he had that problem, and Piastri ended up taking
flying
up the win.
Too. His pace was nuts.
He was absolutely flying. So, but obviously Piastri on those soft tires, he did manage to get past Zhou and take the lead. I think Zhou dropped back to.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought Zhou ran the softs for the whole race and everyone else was running the hards. Because normally you run the hards
maybe
the whole race.
Maybe it was. Maybe I'm getting my...
And Zhou at the start put on the softs, I think. But then there was kind of that middle ground where a few people did box for fresh tyres because they found...
Yeah, I thought that's what... I thought that's what it was. I thought they boxed for fresher tyres and Zhou didn't.
And Zhou, I think, stayed out on his softs, to get the track advantage. And they thought, well, look... just stay out there and do as best you can. And he ended up finishing 3rd. And I think at the end he said he doesn't know how he did it, but he's credit to him, I guess, that he made them last.
And it wouldn't be an F2 race without a little bit of drama.
Yes.
Lundgaard actually got a 10-second penalty for hitting Zendelli, I think, towards the start of the race. And he didn't get to, he went up to the podium thinking he got 2nd because there was really good battle again for the lead between Piastri, Lundgaard, and Zhou, and Lundgaard actually did manage to get it was very, very good. But Lundgaard managed to get 2nd, but everyone thought he still had this 10-second penalty to be added. So he dropped down to 9th, but no one, not even the stewards, knew that apparently he served the 10-second penalty in the pits
when he made that stop with some of the other guys.
When he made the stop, which was really, really smart.
At the start of the feature race, they showed the clip, and they're like, "Look, he did do it."
Yeah.
Which is why they cut to him afterwards, and he looked so confused. Everyone's like, "Was his radio broken? Was he just not told? Did he not realize or something?" But then no, we realized he was confused because he's like, "Well, I served it. What do you mean you didn't see it?"
Yeah, exactly.
So when he at the time looked like a bit of a clown, you went, "Actually, no, it's the FIA looking like a clown." So.
Yeah. So, but they did reinstate it. It was just the next day. But I guess we'll get on to the feature race now, which you've just watched. So you let us know. Let us know what happened.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, another really, really good battle for the lead. It's a lot of three-way battles actually this weekend in F2 because you had Piastri, Lundgaard, and Drogovic right at the start were battling for the lead, and they were all really, really close. And then we had like almost a 5-way battle towards the end of the race, I think, as well. There were like a lot of cars really close
together. The pit stop cycle, because a big thing there was the undercut, and normally in F2 it is quite a big thing. You either undercut by a lot or you overcut by a lot, basically, to then get super fresh tyres to blast
and
the piss out of it.
I think given what happened in F1, the undercut seemed to be the way to go as well.
Yes.
So.
But then it was interesting because just as some guys were about to take their stops, a few guys who hadn't taken theirs yet, we had a virtual safety car.
Yeah.
Which some guys then stopped. And then after that, the safety car came out. So then there was some weird thing with all the timing where I think... if you're off the pack in a safety car, you can go a certain kind of speed to catch up, which is different from if you're behind a virtual safety car. So there were some guys that were boxing and other guys moving around. So the order that it came out was kind of like some guys were all over the shop, and it was like, okay, like...
Yeah.
At first, I think it was Piastri that took advantage of the virtual and came out.
Well, no, he actually didn't. So this is something that I found out actually via the commentary. So technically, they're not allowed to pit under virtual safety car, but they're allowed to pit under safety car.
Right.
So what Piastri did is he actually pitted but under yellow flags before the virtual safety car came out, and he came out as he was coming out of the pits. The virtual safety car came out, and then no one's allowed to pit during virtual safety car because apparently there was a race in, I think they said it was Monaco. It was the last year or the year before that completely changed the outcome of a race when someone pit under the virtual safety car. So they just completely banned it. But for some reason, they are allowed to pit under the safety car.
They had the incident, I think, where people were lapped and guys were lapped down or something, because then it went virtual safety car into red flag or something. It was crazy, but
yeah. But Piastri kind of really, really lucked out and pitted when he did, because he came out in a really, really good position on really good tires. So he took a gamble and it worked out for him.
And then it was after the safety car was called, and then a few guys were able to take advantage of that, because you can box under safety car. So
absolutely. So
Arai again, and
I think it was
guys on different tires.
I've written down that Armstrong and Vachor, they pitted under the full safety car, and they came out P1 and P2 in the end. So Vachor had actually a really, really good weekend in a car that is definitely, I wouldn't even say sort of top 4 in terms of pace. So he had a really strategy seemed to work out for him, and he had a lot of pace.
If he didn't retire out of race 1, he'd be, I mean, he's still technically 5th in the standings with a retirement, but then I guess there's 3 drivers in the top 6 that have a retirement, so I guess that goes to show that this 3-race format, even if you have a retirement in runways, you can still one race, get it together in the other 2, and
Well, I think, even if you win the sprint race, it's like 15 points for a sprint race, so, there's still a lot of points up for grabs, so, it's not like it's...
And I think as a summary, that's what's really good about this new format of having the 3 races is we've already seen from some of the rookies who get a retirement in one race, and traditionally where you'd have your qualifying and then your sprint race, and then you'd flip that for the feature race. In this case, if you have an unlucky race in one of them where you get a retirement, that's not necessarily going to impact your other race or your other 2 races now, if it references back off quali.
Exactly.
We even saw guys that qualified poorly and then moved up, and then they had 2 races to kind of take advantage of a poor qualifying, and then I guess the other race, which they have to go back to whatever their spot was if it was bad, was then the longer race, so they can play the strategy game and such. So I think this was a good proving point of why they put this new format in, and it was good to see kind of even over 3 races a few guys that were kind of consistent over all of them, a few guys that struggled over all of them, and you could just say that's maybe just the track, but then again I don't think there's generally too much difference between kind of track and driver in F2 traditionally. It's not like F1 where you've got tons of different cars that have different sensitivities and such.
Yeah, I think the cars are pretty standard for the most part.
And the biggest difference, I think, last year was a few teams struggled with tyre wear at certain places, but the big thing this year is I think they've changed the hard tyres, so it's a lot easier to warm up. Tyre temperature, I should say. So
they're running the 18-inch rims as well.
They're running them for 2 years. Yeah, they just changed the hard confound to be slightly softer this year. So last year, when they had a lot of teams in some places that really struggled to heat them up, for example, like dams, apparently this year it's a lot easier. So therefore, you can have less of that being, an issue. It's more just down to the drivers themselves.
Sure.
So
yeah,
it was good. It was interesting, to see a few kind of guys who maybe expecting to be fighting for the title who've been here for their second or third year, make a few mistakes, especially compared to the rookies. Some of them are showing some of the other guys up.
Yeah,
I guess it's a good sign for Guan Yu Zhao to come out on top, because last year he did start so strong, but then he kind of fell back, and then he kind of did it around that top 10, which we normally see him in, in the previous year. So already here he's, he's got his win in the book. And third
well,
as
actually, considering, all the other sort of Alpine Academy drivers, they're all doing quite well as well. Like Piastri obviously got his win, and Lundgaard's looking really strong. It seems like all the Alpine Academy drivers are doing really well, so he has to step up and use his experience to really be ahead of that pack if he wants to make his way into Formula One ahead of them. So but yeah,
it was good though to see when the Renault guys did well as well. They had a lot of the personnel. Renault Alpine.
Yes,
we'll get it eventually. When the Alpine drivers did well, it's nice to see a lot of the big Alpine staff and all that come out and see them on the podium and congratulate them. So it's good that they're obviously there and they want to be seen by the media that they're supporting their drivers. And it's clear obviously that this is a big year.
Yeah,
for some of those Alpine drivers. It'll be good to see the interplay just between them, regardless of everyone else.
Yeah.
So.
Just for the last bit on that race, Ticktum did manage to get a good result in the end. He looked very, very fast towards the back end of that race, those last 5 laps. He seemed to be the fastest on the track. He managed to get P2, and I reckon given another 1 or 2 laps, he would have taken the lead for sure. He was very, very quick. It's interesting because there's 4 or 5 teams that are sort of there, Prema weren't really there at the start, and I guess that's with Schwartzman sort of being a bit unlucky, and Piastri
not having the greatest qualifying from either of them. I don't think
no, neither of them had a really good qualifying, so it didn't really help. And you usually see Prema, pretty high up, but after this, you look at that and you see, Prema, obviously they have the race pace. You got UNI Virtuosi there, ART. I think Pourchaire got a little bit unlucky. With various things,
retirement in the first race.
Yeah, so I think he had a lot of pace. I think he made up a lot of place. Yeah, in the second sprint race, he came through like over half the pack.
To finish 6th.
Yeah. So yeah, ART are looking quite punchy as well, and obviously Ticktum's shown that Carlin's quite fast, and Lawson showed that the high tech is really, really fast as well. So it looks like a lot of those cars are going to be very, very close up the top. So
a pretty level playing field is what we like to see. So
absolutely.
On the drivers and really,
100%. So, hell of a weekend to start. But I think it's not for 3 race weekends that we'll see F2 again.
Back at Monaco.
Yes, yeah.
But we have F3 before then. I'm not sure where.
Let's move on to the Formula One race. So. This is what everyone wants to hear. What did you?
They've already left. No.
I don't even know where to start with this. There's so much to talk about. I'm gonna leave the track limits till the end because that's gonna be a whole thing. I had to read up on that.
A lot of people have brought it up with me, and I've been pretty standard on it. I think the quickest thing I'll say now is I think a lot of the confusion came from the commentators who I think overharp on about it. I don't think it was that complicated, really. Like, we can discuss it later.
Yeah, let's discuss it now. All right. First of all, I want to say that it's not the drivers. You don't blame the drivers. Don't blame the teams. I think the rules were very ambiguous.
I think the rules were ambiguous for the public because afterwards a lot of drivers were even asked questions about the rules and what they've been told, and a lot of them were kind of saying, oh no, like it was outlined like this and that at the start of the race, and we're all like, well, we weren't told that. So I think a huge amount of the confusion during the broadcast and all that came because we weren't really told what was going on. And the only things that the media had really heard was that as of Friday, they were saying, like, no, you're not allowed to run out of turn 4 anymore. And in quality, they said, you're not allowed to run out of turn 4, regardless if you lose time or not, you're getting your lap ripped. And we didn't hear anything else, so we assumed, okay, that means it's continuing on to the race. But then allegedly beforehand, they were all told, no, you can go out there, you just can't gain any significant advantages. And I think they said that because they really didn't believe anyone would gain too much out there going out a lot. But then partway through, I think they started to see a few people who consistently were gaining a little bit. And that's when you started hearing those comms partway through that said, okay, they're asking just to tighten it up a little bit.
But
that was the confusing bit, because you'd seen people doing it all the time. And suddenly this, you're going, well, what's the bloody rule? What's going on here?
Well, this is the thing. The rule is this is what they actually said in the rules. So like you said, they didn't have any track limits at turn 4. I think they brought it in for FP2. They're like, okay, okay, now we have track limits. Don't go all 4 wheels over the white line. And that persisted all the way through to qualifying. What we didn't know is that during the race, they have Will Buxton, actually, he got quite heated about this on Twitter. And I kind of agree with what he says. Is the fact that there's effectively 2 different rules for one that Anyway, so the track limits didn't exist during the race. They actually took the track limits, turn 4 track limits away, where you can actually, what Hamilton was doing, you saw him every single lap going out wide like they were doing in FP1. That was allowed because they completely took them away, but it's only if you overtake it's only during an overtake that, if they gain an advantage during an overtake
on the track,
you have to do that on the track.
Deemed as, because as a normal circumstance, I guess if you're by yourself, I guess they're deemed that if your lap time isn't really improving, or like you can still do an overtake around there and still be slower than you would if you weren't there. The point is they're saying if you're going to make an overtake. But I agree. That's when it gets a bit kind of like
it's kind of it's 2 rules, because like if there wasn't a car there, then that would have been legal. Like that move, or I say move, him going wide in that corner would have been absolutely legal. But just because Hamilton was there, it wasn't. It seems a bit weird, and they say it's off track, but the track limits had moved, so they can't say it's off track. Because it's technically not off track. They just say it's literally on track and off track in 2 different circumstances, and you can't do that. You can't. It has to be a black and white thing. Otherwise, people will take advantage of it. Also, when Hamilton was going wide, he obviously got told by, they were technically allowed to go wide by themselves, but he was told off by the stewards for going wide. It's like, we have to reel that back in.
They then saw that was a bit too much, because it was the problem. They gave that blanket statement where they said you can only go out there if you're not gaining an advantage, and I think they said that with the intention they didn't think anyone would gain a genuine advantage lap after lap by doing that, and yet he did, and they said, okay, well, we actually have to technically enforce the thing that we said, which is that he is gaining too much advantage. And I think it was the same with Norris as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think I was told about it.
Yeah. But I don't know. It was just complete. It just kind of. It was a whole farce that just didn't need to happen if you just had one or the other. Like just have one or the other. Make it track or make it not track in both circumstances.
I don't think in a vacuum it's too silly. Like, you know what I mean? But I agree that if you want to look at FIAs, they're supposed to have their crap together. For lack of a better word. Yeah. This isn't a good way to show it. You know what I mean?
Not great. No.
And especially because the fact that the media and especially the commentary team harp on about it a lot. You know what I mean? Like I reckon, I'm not saying they should or not, but I reckon if they harped on about it a lot less, then we wouldn't think about it as much. But all through last year, even through all the new circuits and everywhere, they're always talking about it a lot, just because they like to bring it up all the time. So I think that's why everyone thinks about it. But I think if they really didn't mention it all, they just said, this is how it is, people just go, okay, you know what I mean? But because they like to discuss it a lot, then of course everyone else wants to discuss it a lot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my view of it. But I don't think it really impacted anything. And I think as soon as, like, I don't know if we can talk about it now, but as soon as Max did make that pass, I think majority of people went, like, everyone still knew. You didn't see that and you go, yep, that's fine, because the rules are there. Everyone basically knew, no, like, yes, it's a bit silly, but 100% no, he has to give that back. Yeah. And he even immediately did it, you know what I mean? It's not even like he was trying to fight it.
Yeah.
Which is coming a lot from Max, considering in the past, you wouldn't expect him to anyway. You expect him to go, no, it's fine, because, he'd be the one driver you'd expect to say that, and yet...
Yeah, it has shown his maturity a little bit, because, I mean, even though he didn't like it, he actually said after the race, he's like, why didn't you let me go?
His emotions,
yeah, but he was obviously told by the team to give the position back, and he did so pretty well.
And in the post-race media afterwards, he did say as well that he said, look, like, it was the right thing to do, and, which I think showed a lot. He wasn't harping on about as he has sometimes in the past, even after the race, where he's interviewed,
sure.
and he keeps going, "Oh, it should be this and that." And
I did think, he had that much more pace towards the end of the race. I think he was a bit ambitious. I feel like he could have waited for a better opportunity to do it. And I think in trying to do that move, he sort of got, he ripped through the last of the tires that he would have had to make that overtake. The last of the pace his tires had to get that overtake done, which is why he was stuck behind Hamilton till the end of the race. Why he couldn't get close enough to make another pass, because he used everything trying to get that pass, went off the track, and he needed tires were dirty
time to cool down, and then just as he caught up again, it was too late. If he had another lap, I think he would have had another shot.
For sure. So, but fair play to Hamilton. One thing,
he tire whispered the hell out of that set. Like everyone, when they saw Max boxing early, we thought, okay, well, these guys have still got to stop, and then one by one they stopped, and Hamilton's like, no, I'm not doing that. Yep. And then the fact that he didn't, and Max caught up with, So this is a sign where, often you joke about Hamilton, or you just say, oh, he's left alone, he's not that good, or you know what I mean. Sometimes you see him run a long set, and it's just because he's not troubled. But here, he hasn't been under this much pressure on an old set of tires. I can't even think for a long, long time, especially from someone like Max. And it's not like
possibly
Max held back. Max bloody gave it his all, and Hamilton just placed his car beautifully and just managed everything, his positioning, and so you have to say, like, yes, although we can say, oh no, it's another Hamilton win, it's actually one where you go, he deserved that, good on him, you know? Like, it's fine if he wins.
As much as I joked,
bloody fought for it.
Yeah, as much as I joke at the start, it's one of the more fun Hamilton victories we've had in a while. It's one of the few that I've
showed he's definitely still got it. He had to pull everything out as much as anyone would, and a lot of people there would have faltered. There's not many people you could say would have done what he did after all this time.
And it's one of those things going into this, like this weekend in this race. Obviously all this talk about Red Bull, they have the better car, they have the better engine, and it's always been like are they just saying that for the sake of not trying to is Mercedes just saying that
about Ferrari?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think, despite Hamilton winning it, I do think that Red Bull actually have the stronger car, and to fend off the strongest car right at the end of the race on such old hard tires is like, it's a hell of a feat for him.
And Mercedes only got there as well because I think a lot of people said they really did try a Red Bull strategy. They went very unconventional with their strategy, and everyone's like, well, this is a bit wacky, you know what I mean? And even then, is it through both their stops and the periods of the race, you went, oh, they changed it up again, you know what I mean? And it really shocked you, and it still showed that it worked. So
3-stop strategy. When have you seen a 3-stopper before? Oh, it's been so long. That was really, really good. So, because that was about, outside of DRS overtakes, it was that, and it was strategy, and the strategy was what made it interesting.
And it was the same up and down the field, you know what I mean? There was a lot of teams that suffered because they had a mess strategy, and other teams which did really well because they just boxed at the right time. So
absolutely. So
it's good, and I guess it does help that this track traditionally is good. It's not like we've had a smashing race at a track that's really boring, you know what I mean? We go, great, it's all better. But certainly I think this helped, and it was interesting how kind of after the race, and a lot of guys already talking about how they can tell, they're kind of putting, I guess, their analysis out of how these aero changes for this year have kind of affected the cars and everything. And some teams are like, we've got this and that, and other teams are really just like, this is bullcrap, what the hell, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to name anyone.
Otmar.
Yes, he kind of came out, it was just like, this is completely snuffed us, what the hell? And it's like, okay, but like this happens to teams every year, like I could get them maybe causing a fuss last year when everyone was poking at them for, the pick Mercedes and that, and they're just like, no, we did it in the rules, and that's fine, you know what I mean? Like, I get they had a bit of a fuss because I think a lot of people were kind of over going at them, and in the end, even though yes, they did do something illegal, it wasn't even a bit you could see, so it didn't bloody matter for what everyone was saying about pink Mercedes, etc, etc. But in this case, afterwards when he came out, and he was very clearly in the media, just like, I think the FIA have not made it fair enough to us. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this happens, what do you think Ferrari came out for a whole year and like, they screwed our car when we were winning 7 years in a row? It's like, they're going to a bit, but you don't really have much power to say that, it's just unlucky.
Even Mercedes have taken it more on the chin than you are, and they're the ones that are trying to defend their title.
They've said, we know this has hurt us, but then they've actually put in the bloody work to get around it. And yes, you'd say, sure, compared to Aston Martin, they have more resources, people experience, blah, blah, blah. But it's just more credit to Mercedes that at the start of the week when they had a bloody dog of a car and you saw some onboards from Bottas and he was just sliding everywhere. And
I think he said it was undrivable. Wow.
Yeah. And if you've seen that clip, there's like a 40-second clip and he's just like every corner, he's just sliding and he's barely got like his foot on the power and you just go, wow, that's not good. And yet, they still produced a good enough car that Hamilton could stay up there on bugger old tires.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know what? Speaking of Bottas, let's talk about Bottas because he's done another Bottas, hasn't he? He's I
was just thinking, he's like, look, I'm revived, and then it's like, well, he was in third.
I'm wondering,
he got his fastest lap.
I don't know. I'm wondering if it's because he is just not comfortable in that car. Obviously, maybe he didn't fix all the gremlins in that car that he wanted to, and that's sort of come back to bite him in the race. But you look at that, and it doesn't fill you with much confidence that he has sort of changed his mentality. I mean, he obviously he's come out and been pretty vocal about how he didn't like he was on exactly the same strategy as Hamilton in the end, even though he wanted to go long, or I think he was told that he might go long on those tires, and I think he came in 2 laps later, and we were like, that's a bit weird.
Because basically it looked like they were going to leave him out, he was going to do something different, and then they kind of just went in the middle ground, which doesn't really work for anything, It's like they already took the pain to change strategy, but then they went back to the first strategy, so he'd already taken,
it was a bit weird.
A few crap laps, but he didn't even get to do his overcuts. So, and then at that point, you didn't really think of him much. He was kind of just dawdling around by himself. And I think, I think because Verstappen was so up there that Hamilton was pushing his bloody guts out the whole race, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they all push each other. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and especially because they did something a bit different with Hamilton, because they boxed him early, right, compared to what they're expecting.
Yes, yeah.
So that's why he was able to get out and he just bloody pushed it, and then they went, okay, we'll do the different thing for Valtteri, and then everyone else boxed, and then Valtteri boxed like 1 lap after. It's like, oh no, he's just been the worst treated out of everyone on the field. Yep. And out of then he was kind of just running his own thing. So I guess if there's any credit due, it's that he still, I don't know, didn't make a mistake.
He still got P3, I guess.
And his lap 1 was all right.
And... I don't know. I mean, we definitely need to see more from him, I think. I don't know if
you hope it's just kind of a slow start and he's just struggling a bit, and maybe he did a bit more, I don't know,
who knows,
set up focus in the race when he was alone, who knows, you know what I mean?
Possibly, yeah. All right, let's talk about Perez, because he even before the race started, he had a Red Bull second driver moment where his car decided it wanted to shut down literally on the formation lap, I think. I
thought you meant that he didn't get into Q3 was his Red Bull second driver moment.
Oh yeah. I mean, there is that too.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, he didn't have the best start to his weekend, but man, did he make the best of a bad situation. He started from the pit lane, like going on his formation lap. His car completely shut down. He actually came around the corner and everything just powered off.
Yep.
And he had the foresight to, actually get it all.
I think he was about to jump out, but then I don't know if he got a radio call or just thought about it, but then you saw him hit a few buttons and doodads, and it was lucky that because he was stuck there, they couldn't start the race, so he had a bit of time to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then suddenly it lit up, and I think you even heard of the radio, it was like, hello?
Yeah,
He's like, I hear you! It's like, hey!
So obviously, because he didn't finish the formation lap, he did have to start from the pits, which is a bit unfortunate for him, but he ended up P5 in the end, so I don't think Albon would have done that if he was in that car, I'll be honest.
It's interesting, because I think that we did see, I don't remember what race, it was maybe Russia, I think, where Gasly or Albon, one of the two, did do the same thing, where they started from the pit lane and moved up to P5, I believe. The other argument on that is, well, this is his first race in the car, and it's not like he had a lucky safety car or anything to help him out. I think in that other race, Albon, or whoever it was, Gasly, halfway through, did have a safety car to help, and yes, there was one early here, but he was basically at the back of the pack anyway, so it didn't give him any advantage or disadvantage. He didn't box under it. So, to his credit, from a race start to finish, where he didn't really get any lucky help, yeah, good on him, you know what I mean? Like, he came out of quali, and the other guys said this previously, but he did come out and he said, no, this is like all me, like I'm well aware that this isn't expected, and even though, yes, I'm new to the team, I still should be getting into top 10 first, and because everyone, of course, was saying, well, why did they put him on the mediums? He wasn't certain. He was basically saying, no, I basically told them to put me on the mediums. He had the confidence to say that, so I guess from that regard, he's still got the mindset of saying, no, I don't want any special treatment or anything, put me on, the golden strategy, and I'll just have to work my bloody pants off to make sure I'm hitting the targets I should be hitting. So,
for sure.
It'll blow back in his face if he's still struggling over the next few weekends, but at least least this mindset is, it's not just like, oh, I'm still getting warmed up. He's like, no, like I should be there, and he gave it his beans in the race. So to his credit, yeah, not the worst recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
All things considered.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about how Ricciardo was exposed by Norris this weekend. Despite the fact that Gasly hit him and he gave him floor damage the entire race, which
and
he found out
allegedly
after,
he lost a lot of downforce from that, which is
so,
why he was on the radio going, "Why have I got no pace? I don't understand."
Ricciardo is not as good as Norris, and he was exposed. I've been seeing that all weekend until this was released. I've been seeing how is Ricciardo not as good as he used to be, and it's just like, well, he's done pretty damn well considering he had a damaged floor pretty much from lap 1, I think it was. So
yes. And to the credit of that, he didn't know. I don't think the team really suspected it. No. So when he
just thought he had bad performance, I think.
Yes, so, and all his talk over the radio, that was him chinning up, saying, like I pushed really hard, I just didn't have the pace. I'm gonna have to have a look and see why. Well, now they know why. It wasn't really his fault. Like,
exactly.
And to Lando's credit, Lando drove a bloody smash bang start to finish as well. So it's not just really that it's only down. Ricciardo's only down there because of his issues. To be fair, I think even if they're on the same thing, it might have only been 4-5, maybe 4-6, depending on how Perez would have done.
Yeah, for sure. I think McLaren looked. Ricciardo got 7th in the end. So to do that with a damaged floor, he was only
with a lot of competitive guys out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So much happening.
Yeah. He was like 30 seconds behind Norris in the end. So he's done a damn good job. But yeah, I wanted
good job.
Shut up. So I wanted to actually talk about. I think it's pretty obvious. The whole top of the midfield thing. It does look like that McLaren seem to have almost cemented their place there. But even considering sort of Ferrari's race, they finished 6th and 8th with Leclerc and Sainz. They look pretty punchy, actually, given that new engine.
In a car that they still even said that they've changed a fair bit on it, and they're still trying to tune. We saw them do well in quali, really well, and went okay, but they had a good quali car last year, and then you saw they just went boo as soon as things started. And in this near the start, they were up there, they were fighting. I think it was even Leclerc that got ahead of Bottas early, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, yeah.
I think on lap 1 or 2. So even their start seemed to be decent. So obviously everything that they're changing there has done something, and if they're still coming out and saying, look, we've still got a lot of things to figure out and some configuration and all that and there and whatever, then
it's really good signs.
Bodes well. But even if you would say McLaren is a tiny bit up there, it's still anything could change, and I think it just helps that McLaren have just built a really stable car for this year, and
for sure,
which is ironic considering we didn't really know where they'd be because they had to bring in this new engine package, of course, and car that wasn't designed for it. So they might struggle a bit, and yet they're even stronger basically than they were looking like last year. It's like, okay, good job, well done.
Yeah, they've done well.
So
I think something that the other team that we didn't really see the full potential of is AlphaTauri, because I think they're right up there as well, and I think Gasly got
more the potential of their drivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we saw the potential of the car in quali and then in the race. It's just that both the drivers, really, you'd have to say out of everyone had some pretty I mean, unlucky moments.
Yeah, Gasly obviously hit Ricciardo. That's what caused Ricciardo's damage, but he lost his front wings, so he had to come in and get that replaced, I think, pretty much the lap 2. So he went right to the back of the field, and he was like a minute behind almost immediately, so he was just basically doing a recovery. Ended up, 4 laps behind in the end. I'm guessing he just retired. So.
I think he retired near the end, yeah.
But Tsunoda, I actually looked at his start. I want to talk about Tsunoda, because my God... That man is on a mission. Who doesn't want to talk about him? But he had a really, really poor start. Dropped quite a few places back at the start. But some of the moves that he made during that race are just ridiculous. Like the audacity of the moves that he made. Like you see one, I think the very last lap on Stroll to take 9th place on that on the main straight, on the pit straight coming down. He looked like he was 100 meters behind Stroll, and he was just like, they're just going to send it down on the inside, and, oh my God. He's looking fast. He's looking really, really feisty, really punchy, and I'm expecting very, very big things from him, and your prediction of Tsunoda outperforming Gasly might actually come true a bit sooner than you might think, so...
We're not going to talk about my other predictions, but that one, feeling good about.
Yeah, man. I could watch his onboard all day from that race.
He definitely showed his best hand. And even his personality side came out, I think, when he was behind, I think it was even Stroll, and he was trying to catch him. And I think his engineer quite calmly over the radio was saying, you've got a gap of XY to Stroll.
Yeah.
And he just yelled, "Chill!" into the radio. And it was like, okay. Yeah. And he is known for having a bit of a potty mouth as well, even though he said he's trying to work on it, but that's just kind of who he is. But it shows he's got a huge amount of passion and guts. And, I guess it very much shows that that young Japanese spirit that you've seen in drivers in the past that have come through from Japan. Sure. So he's doing his nationality and his heritage proud so far. And I think even we saw at the start he lost a few places, but it was because he was being extra careful, and you say, okay, fair enough. Sure. And yet he made up for that by then pulling out some bloody blinder moves, and the car looks good as well. I think as we were saying before about that high rate concept, and I think that almost like the highest rake on the field. You can see that thing is
I think they said
45-degree triangle at this point.
It's like vertical.
It's going to have dragster tires on the back soon. But it seems to be really working with this kind of the loss of air at the back, and they're really liking it.
Yeah.
Again, it could just be circuit specific, but I think they know enough about what they're seeing on the data to know that it's not really going to be circuit specific. It's just in general quite a stable car.
Yeah, for sure.
Where some of the lower rate cars would differ a lot more track to track, as we've seen in the past few years.
Yeah, I think even Mercedes, or I don't even know, it was Hamilton or Toto, someone came out and said that they're not sure that even at the next couple of tracks their car will be faster. So
especially the next one being Imola.
Yes.
And they're not even sure what the downforce. Often you need a bit more downforce there than you do in Bahrain, because Bahrain, at least they can make up on those straights. We even saw in quali, and when Max was chasing Hamilton down the first sector, Hamilton had a bit, but then the second sector Max was right on him. So in a case of where you have Imola, which is a lot more like the second sector, maybe not as slow, but not necessarily just straights into slow corners. You've got
like high speed corners, which is actually where, funnily enough, where Mercedes were really, really strong, I guess, for the last many years. They were really good in those sort of high speed corners. In terms of Bahrain,
that's what Red Bull came out and they said, even though we like this track, Mercedes often still dominates here because they have that good balance there in the slow corners. Who else are we looking to discuss? Should we discuss the Astons?
I do have that on my list.
The one kind of team you didn't really see what you expected to see. I mean, again, they're kind of like had a similar concept to the Mercedes, so they also struggled a bit. And I guess maybe they're inexperienced or whatever you want to use. You'd say inexperienced, it's basically had the same guys in that team for 10-15 years now, but regardless, I guess they're still trying to get around all the updates they've made to their car this year. Which is like the Mercedes B, I guess, if you want to call it that.
I suppose so.
I think.
I mean, Vettel had a bad start anyway.
You'd say it was part drivers and part car. It's not like the car was in a great place. I mean, even saw in quali and in the race.
Stroll did get P10 in the end, so he got a point.
He did, and he did have decent pace. His qualifying in the car he was struggling with was decent, you know what I mean? He made it into Q3, and I think they only gave him the one lap. Just because they went, look, we're not going to use up our tyres. We're going to save them for the race, and we're probably not going to improve from 10th anyway. But you have to say from Vettel, it was again a bit like, okay, let's I'm glad I wasn't hopping on. I'm glad that at the start of this year, I decided to abort following this team and go, nope, I'm going to mentally detach myself. And sure enough, I would have been spewing if I was rooting for them in this race. So.
Yeah, he made a decent call. Vettel, he just can't seem to catch a break, can he?
Every time he gets tilted, and then he just
I don't know, man. I mean, I did. It's one of those things. I think even the commentators were saying it all the way through testing. It's like, you can sort of, might have even been Will Buxton actually. But you could sort of tell where the pecking order was, except for two teams. That was Aston and Alpine. You weren't really sure where both of those teams were, and we can kind of see where Aston is now. I think Alpine. They don't look super hot either. I think Alonso had a bit of issue. He was out of the race because of a sandwich bag apparently, and it killed his brakes.
The sandwich wrapper got in there, which is you'd think would happen more often. It does happen now and then, but it's still very unlikely.
But both of those cars, they don't. I mean, they were both really strong last year, and Renault. Now Alpine, obviously, Renault were, arguably the third or fourth best team, and now they're not at all. They're nowhere near their And then
not based off of this, and
No.
it's interesting whether you think how much of it's track specific. I think especially for the Aston Martin again, because it kind of follows that Mercedes concept, and we saw it last year as well. That some places they really shone at, and then other places they're really struggling with. I think them in contrast to the Alpine, which I think again kind of is almost reminiscent of like the 2018-2019 Renault, which it still kind of worked as a package. It just needed more oomph, you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like 80% there. It's not like it was slippy or it was a handful to drive. It's just that when they got to the optimal, everyone else could just get more out of their package. And I already feel like it's a bit like this, you know, like it's not like the car looked a handful and they drove all right, they made some good passes and that, even though in the end they just got passed back. But it's still just a bit missing there. Like, they just haven't had time to really maximize their package, you know. Whether they have chance to develop that, you know, again, in previous years they've said, we're starting off with an air car, but then we've got, you know, like a super upgrade coming later in the year, and then that kind of did a bit but not really. You wonder if they're trying that again this year, where I feel like other teams might more just be having what they've got and they're just going to run with it. I don't really know. It'll be interesting to see though. I still don't think the story for that midfield is over at all.
No.
It helps we've got an exciting battle at the front, hopefully, so it doesn't even look like we really have to focus on the midfield, but then the midfield looks like it's going to be just as interesting as ever. So it's
it looked like there'd be an ebb and flow there for sure. So
yeah. Even when you look at the finishing order of, you know, basically fourth down, you know, you don't really have anyone side by side, except for when you get to
Alpha.
Well, basically no one, is it?
It's Alpha Romeo.
The Alphas were together, yeah.
Which 11th, 12th, they've done quite well to be 11th, 12th in the end.
Again, I think, similarly, they're almost in that. You expected them to be here, but I think similarly they're in that Renault bucket where they have a package that kind of works. It's just that they don't really get much oomph out of it. But then they're known as kind of a lower team, so I think they actually ran alright, and both their drivers, you know, ran alright. And I think Kimi really wanted that 10th, and argue to say he probably, you know, if he had gotten the 10th, then again it's just kind of midfield, and then you drop down, it still kind of is a blurred line. You don't really see, you know, staggers of it. So
I think like I said, I think the team probably to watch that didn't really show their full hand today is AlphaTauri, and I think that was just, like I said, a little bit of luck went not their way. But obviously Tsunoda showed, you know, just how good on race pace that car can be. So
and how good he can be.
How good he
can
be, and we obviously
have time to get better.
Yeah, and obviously we know how good Gasly can be as well. I think he just got very unlucky on lap 1. So I would expect big things from him in the next couple of races as well.
Stunner, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was huge. So it'll be interesting. It was, but man, what a freaking opening race this was. Like, I think. I was looking at some articles that have just come out, and apparently it was the most watched opening race weekend ever for Formula One.
I think Sky F1 said it was their most watched race.
Yeah, and I think ESPN, it was their most watched one as well. They came out with those things. So, which, you know, what a hell of a race to be the most watched.
God, it puts a lot of credit on the fact they say if you've got a close championship, then it does bring viewers in. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not like you know, Drive to Survive came out and it blew people away again and got new fans in. You know, it's not like there was some other event that would have brought new fans in, or they've released some free to air thing. It really, I guess, is just the news that spread that there could be a proper battle on here for the first time. You know, since I guess Hamilton Rosberg, and even then, because that was between teammates rather than teams, it's still
now
as big as this.
Yeah, now it's Mercedes Red Bull, which is a whole
people would have
thing,
tuned in, seen the start, and basically from start to finish, you didn't really know how it was going to go. It's not even like you knew it halfway through. So
yeah, exactly.
I hope that a lot of people are going to turn up for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely one to keep an eye on. I do think that Red Bull will come out a bit stronger. I think if Perez has a little bit more luck. We'll see him.
Gets a bit together.
Gets it.
If anyone can do it, he's
absolutely.
He'll be in the simulator 24/7.
Yeah. I think they said. Like I said, Mercedes said Imola. They probably struggle there as well. So we might see the Red Bull on top for that one if they can keep it together.
If you think about last year, I think as well, they were Red Bull. Max had his puncture, I believe it was, but even before that, he was flying out there. So yeah.
I got to wait 3 weeks for that though. So. Yeehaw. Or two weeks now, I guess, because we're recording this a bit late. But it's I don't know if I can wait that long. It's too long. This is the most hyped I've been for a season in a long time. So, Anyway, any final thoughts from you, or are we good to?
I don't know. I guess if there wasn't anyone else we didn't really talk about, I don't know, like there was the Haas drivers, which are kind of self-explanatory. I think, to be fair to Mick, he did well to hold his shoes in a car that was, like he had that spin lap 1, which I think, again, just to show how crap that car is when it first starts off and not everything's warmed up. To his credit, he spun it, but it wasn't it looked like a big spin, but it didn't really have much damage or anything, at all on the car. So
unlike Mazepin's,
in that regard,
where he spun,
yes, he spun gracefully,
Yeah.
got it around, and he kept it going around, and it's good for him, good data for the team. Definitely going to be a hard season for that team. Mazepin, you don't need to say more. If you saw it practice, quali, I don't know, okay, great, fuck.
He's just doing Mazepin things right now.
Literally expected nothing, and it's still just
and still he disappoints. Yeah,
and you can even hear in his voice afterwards. He's just like, I need to do a bit of homework, I think, because that was not a good weekend.
No, not at all.
And even in quali, I don't know if you saw when they were going into the, how they all line up and they have the gentleman's code.
Yep, which he didn't know about. He just overtaking everyone into the final corner.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure because it sounded like on his radio, almost if his engineer was telling him he could do it. I heard a bit and I wasn't sure, but still the fact he didn't really know shows, I guess, he didn't do any bloody research, because I think majority of them know that's, almost all fan knows you don't do that who's watched any qualifying session, because they always bring it up.
Yeah.
And yet he went down there, he was at the back of the queue, he decided to get ahead, and then he brings out a yellow flag. So everyone he overtook then gets their lap.
Yeah, it was, I think Vettel and Ocon were both they were ultra pissed.
Yes.
Vettel in particular was ultra pissed because I think both of them got...
And then Vettel's a slap on the wrist went too quick still.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's why he started at the back.
But that's... Yeah. Oh, dear. Yeah. What a great race.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if we have more weekends like that, this will be the best season in a while, I think. Really close at the front. If Bottas can... figure out whatever issues he's got, somehow get into that mix. If Perez can get more comfortable in that car.
Bottas Checo battle, you think about that.
Oh, that'd be huge as well.
There and mix into it. Oh,
and if
occasionally see McLaren up there.
Yeah, so there's talks that McLaren's, could McLaren even mix it with the Red Bull Mercedes at some races at some point toward the end of the season. And it's like, if that could happen and we could get almost a 3-horse race towards the end, man, that'd be...
Don't tease me.
No, getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. I guess we'll see you in a few weeks when Imola comes around. But let us know your thoughts on this race. It was a lot to talk about. I'm sure we've missed something. But yeah, if you want to, if you have any thoughts, let us know. But we'll see you for our next video, which will probably be just a normal podcast, normal news podcast. We haven't done one of those in a while, so...
No, we'll see, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you saw the F2, let us know as well what you thought of that.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Definitely check it out if you can, especially even just the feature race, if you've only got a bit of time for that one.
100%, yeah. Alright, well, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Catches.